So today we are talking about teachers and why they're quitting. Kids are insane these days, just about. The process to become a teacher in itself is kind of outrageous anyway. If you can study and pass that praxis on your own, what's the point in the college degree? The teacher has to take off. They take the money for the sub out of the teacher's check.
See, that's crazy.
Isn't that what sick days are for? Hey guys, I'm Elijah.
And I'm Tina.
And this is
The Brooks Podcast.
So today we are talking about teachers and why they're quitting. And ironically, this is a profession that you've considered going into.
Yeah. Well, see, I considered going into it to be a music teacher, but my passion is for music and not for teaching. And so I feel like trying to teach little kids about music, I feel like I would get frustrated very easily. And so I just didn't want anybody to be in that kind of situation, especially because, like, I don't have my bachelor's degree yet. So I would only be a teaching assistant at first, and I would not get any insurance yet.
And we need insurance right now.
Yeah.
Which, mostly because she needs ADHD medications.
And that's expensive. Yeah. I mean, like,
Very.
I don't understand why it's so expensive.
Big pharma. What do we want?
Mm-hmm.
We live in America. That's probably part of the reason why.
But yeah. But also, like, kids can be pretty awful these days.
Yeah. Which ties into section number 1 of this. Kids are insane these days, just about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because it's like at home, like they're very much catered to and pacified. And so whenever you're put in a situation where you're fighting for the attention of a teacher with 30 other kids in the classroom, like these kids start acting out because they're trying to get the attention that they want.
Yeah. And depending on what grade, they're giving the kids iPads and Chromebooks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you can only lock that down so far.
Yeah. Samuel started getting a Chromebook in 2nd grade.
Yeah, because I want to say even in 2nd or 3rd grade, they started giving ours iPads in our county.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know different counties do different things, depending on budget and restraints and all that. Yeah, but kids are insane. On top of the fact, I don't feel like, which I want to preface this, we don't have kids, so what I say is just coming from my own brain and my own experience. I feel like some parents just aren't really raising their kids to be obedient.
Yeah. Well, okay. And I would like to say, like, yeah, we don't have any kids, but I would like to preface this with the fact that I have experience with kids because my mom has taught her entire life and I've helped her with her kids for like ages. Oh, the dogs are scrapping out there.
They're fine.
But I've always helped my mom with her kids. I've always like been involved in childcare, and also I was 15, almost 16 whenever my little brother was born. And I practically co-raised him with my mom. So it's us saying we don't have kids is not us saying we don't have any experience with kids at all.
Because I like to think I'm observant anyway, and we have plenty of kids at church that we help work with and stuff like that too. So we do nursery duty. So I'm not trying to say there are everyone's a bad parent. There are good parents out there.
Yeah. Well, because see, that's the thing is like being 16 whenever Samuel was born, I know how difficult it is to raise a kid. So it's like, I'm not saying that these parents' efforts are going unnoticed. I just think a lot of parents are like just trying to pacify their kids because they don't want to deal with the temper tantrums instead of actually teaching their kids how to like self-regulate. And I know like with some kids it's easier than others because like there are some kids who are just so calm and content. They can entertain themselves. they're perfectly fine. But then there are other kids who have more like emotional needs, or like, I mean, like with Samuel, like he gets overstimulated easily. He has like, he has trouble regulating his emotions. He has trouble communicating. But I feel like the way that a lot of parents go about it, including my mom, has not really helped as much as they think it is, because we're just shoving technology in their face to pacify them.
Yeah, and it's a lot of like trying to have conversations of, okay, well, you reacted this way, it gave you this outcome. I don't think that's helpful.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're feeling overwhelmed, try X. Or
yeah. Which, because I mean, like, also to say, because this can be a pretty touchy subject, also to say that there are lots of parents who like have those kinds of conversations with their kids and like teach their kids. But I feel like, especially in classrooms, it's like whenever you have that one kid that isn't as good as regulating their emotions, or, wants that attention and doesn't know how to get it other than acting out, you get that one kid and it sets the entire classroom up.
And that doesn't help.
Yeah, because especially like with younger kids, it's like you get one kid doing something, all the kids are going to start doing it.
Yeah, so because you have that, and I don't know, it's just almost like too, you just have like all these needs everywhere too, and that's also hard to deal with, especially as a teacher, like because like more and more kids are getting diagnosed now that we're like understanding mental health and stuff.
Right.
More and more kids are getting diagnosed with ADHD or associative disorder or anything else. And it's like, and then it's like, okay, we're giving the kid a label of you have this. So, and then I almost feel like sometimes they powder coat it as you have this, so it's okay to act that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, when that's reality, no, that's not okay.
Yeah. Well, because like I have a friend who's a teacher who told me that like one of her biggest struggles in the classroom is like, because like, yeah, the kids can be difficult, but I think another thing that makes it really difficult is like the higher up faculty, like the admin, are not giving these teachers the tools and resources that they need because they're so short staffed and everything. So it's like I understand it, but it's like these teachers have way too many kids for the resources that they're allotted, and like they have to, because I think she said like especially since COVID, it's like you're only allowed to spend so much time on each kid, so you have to spread your time out throughout the day. So it's like if there is a kid that like needs a little extra help, like they're basically getting lost because like she's not allowed to spend the one-on-one time with this particular kid that she needs, because they want all the kids to get equal time, when in reality, like all the kids don't need the same help.
Right.
And, like they try to make it like no kid left behind, but in reality,
they're going to leave kids behind because...
Yeah. And it's like, and I'm pretty sure now, like they're making it to where you can't like hold kids back anymore. Like you can't fail kids in school, like especially like younger grades.
Yeah.
So it's like they keep progressing. I mean, I know someone who was held back in kindergarten.
I was held back in kindergarten.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like,
which grade? Like, I'm a smart kid. They didn't give me my words.
Yeah. Well, because that's what I'm saying. It's like there are just some kids who aren't ready for what's given to them. They need a little extra time, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but they're not allowed to be like, hey, I think they might need to repeat so they can fully understand before they go to the next one. Instead, they're just like, nope, just keep going. And it's like, but I still don't get it.
Yeah, like they're...
and then you get to the higher thing and you're like, it's even worse.
Yeah. So it's like basically like a combination of like a lot of parents like not really knowing any better, like knowing what to do for their kids, like admin not giving correct tools and resources. Also, like just the society that we live in today. I feel like everything is like geared towards these children being basically overwhelmed in like the early years of life. So it's like whenever they get older and they become like adults, they're not going to know how to function in life because they were never properly taught.
And then bad behavior is just kind of getting excused on top of that. Because like I've literally listened to teacher podcast, and it will be like, okay, a teacher called and was like, "Hey, this kid's acting out. I tried having a discussion. Nothing's working. Can you come handle this?" Admin will come get the kid or whatever. And then they'll basically give him a bag of chips, talk to him, be like, "Now, why did you act that way?" And then send him back to class, and there was nothing was done.
Yeah.
So then the kid's like, "Oh, well, if I act bad, I get a bag of chips. Cool."
Yeah. Well, because like that is another thing too. And I guess that kind of ties into the admins not giving enough like resources for these teachers is like whenever I was in school, like whenever someone was acting out, like I feel like we were disciplined. I mean, like I wasn't like paddled or anything like that. I wasn't like that far back in school.
I wasn't, but my mom was like, "If you need to, do it."
Yeah, but
if not, she would.
Yeah,
Actually,
but
technically, if they did, she would also. It's kind of like a double portion.
Yeah, you got lucky with that, huh?
Yep.
But I feel like these days, because like of this new wave of like these kids getting diagnosed with these like, you know, learning disabilities, like mental health issues and stuff like that. So it's like now we can't punish the kids. Like we can't discipline them because of like, for whatever reason, we're scared to discipline children. I don't know. I feel like, because I know like in school these days, the kids just like, they aren't able to be treated the same way.
Yeah, and it's almost to their detriment. Which is also then making it harder on the teacher themselves.
Yeah. Which, because I mean, I'm not saying that we should start paddling kids again or anything like that. I'm not saying that. No. But I just think
there are ways to go about it.
I just think that there is better disciplinary action than being like, "Hey, bud, why were you acting out?" Because like if that conversation doesn't get you anywhere and the kid is still acting out, we got to figure something out.
We got to escalate something.
Yeah, we got to figure something else out. Like we got to do something.
Yeah, on top of the fact, this whole gentle parenting thing. Gentle parenting is for gentle kids. Some of these kids are not gentle.
No.
Because I know plenty of kids.
Oh, how do you think gentle parenting would work with your brother?
He would be a monster.
Yeah.
Like, I'd probably had to fight him.
Yeah. Basically, bottom line of that portion of the story is all kids are different and all kids require different kind of parenting styles.
Because like,
different
their parenting style changed drastically from even me to my brother.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, look at my mom. Like, my mom was hard on me. Like, I literally to the point where I called her psycho mom because she was so hard on me. And like, I feel like I grew up with a lot of like childhood trauma because of that. And then she saw the trauma and was like, "Oh God, can't do that again." So now, 15 and a half years after I was born, she decides to have my little brother Samuel. Which
he was a surprise.
Yeah, he was a surprise. He wasn't planned. But like, she has this other kid, and then she's like, "Oh, well, with Tina, we did this, and it was just too much. So now we need to do this." And like, I will say, like, as far as trying to help Samuel like cope with his emotions and like, self-regulate and all this stuff, I really do feel like she is like taking more initiative to try and like understand like, why are you acting this way? Why are you acting out? She does take more time to do that, but also she does, shove an iPad in his face. And then it's like, and that's another thing too, is like with Samuel, it like, I guess that's kind of why she doesn't really care about the iPad no more, because whenever he was a little bit younger, like you could take away literally everything. Like you could take away his iPad, take away his TV, take away all of his toys and everything. And he would sit in his room and do nothing and be perfectly fine. And the second you're like, okay, you've been good, here's it back, it just goes right back to where it all started. It did nothing. It didn't do anything. Like, that's why I'm saying I understand the difficulty of raising kids, because some of them are just difficult. But it's like we're putting them in these environments where there are not tools and resources for them to actually be helped, and for them to actually start understanding like how to deal with these emotions, or how to effectively communicate. Hey, I need some attention right now, instead of like, going and like, drawing on the wall or hitting another kid so their teacher gets them in trouble and they can go sit in the principal's office and have one-on-one conversation with the human, which is all they were wanting in the first place. So it's like they're getting rewarded for their bad behavior in that sense.
I don't know, it's kind of like just a slippery slope on that one.
Yeah, it is.
But on top of the fact, the other bullet point I have, different kids identifying as different genders at a younger and younger age. On top of the fact, some reports of kids identifying as cats and dogs.
Yeah, as animals. And like in the school system, like the teachers, they have to respect that. Like they have to. My thing is, like, if you're 5 years old and you're like, because here's the thing, whenever I was 5, I pretended I was a horse. Okay. I pretended I was a horse all the time. I was like, I'm a horse.
We've
but
all pretended that kind of stuff.
It was imagination. But now we're like, oh, he's a horse. Oh, let's make sure the horse has their hay. Like, it just feeding way too much into it. Like, there is a difference between like playing pretend and then being like, oh, he's identifying as a horse now. Like, that's what's crazy to me, is that you're literally letting a 5-year-old who like doesn't even know what they want to eat for breakfast, like, because they'll say they want pancakes. You put pancakes in front of them and they'll literally have a meltdown and say, no, I wanted waffles. Okay, you're letting a kid that can't make decisions
dictate they're an animal or some other kind of gender when they don't even really understand what that means.
Yeah, they don't understand. Like, it's
and as a teacher, how do you even deal with that as a teacher?
Well, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, in the school system, like, they have to respect that, because they'll get in trouble if they don't. Like, you can't be like, no, we're not actually a horse. Like, no, you're not actually a boy, you're a girl. Or, no, you're not actually a girl, you're a boy. Like, you can't say stuff like that, because it'll get you in trouble.
Yeah, it's something I heard Joe Rogan. I think it was his daughter. I could be wrong. I might completely botch the story. I believe it was his daughter came to him and was like, Dad, I identify as a wolf now. He's like, okay. So he took her out in the woods and said, the house is right over there. Here's your tent. If you're identifying as a wolf, you're going to stay outside. When you want to no longer identify as a wolf, come to the house.
Yeah.
She came back like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm a girl now.
Yeah. Well, because, like, see, this is another thing, too, is that's why I'm like, I don't think these kids fully understand, like, what they're saying. Because they just get these ideas in their head, and they're like, oh, this would be fun. But
because everything just gets reinforced.
But here's the thing, though, is that as humans, our brains are not fully developed until the age of 25. Okay, like,
so your brain just now developed.
My brain is just now fully developed. I am just now a full human being, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, but that's what I'm saying is, like, whenever kids are young, like, if like, and I know that because we're Christians, so we have particular beliefs on, like, LGBTQIA plus issues,
all the stuff.
But here's the thing: is that what I don't agree with is letting children, especially children under the age of like 12 to 16 who don't really know any better, like for real, like make these kinds of decisions whenever they don't have the full autonomy. Because what is going to happen whenever you're like, okay, you're a horse and you treat your kid like a horse, and then they get older and then they're like, oh, I don't know if I like this anymore. and then they have to like revert back like all this stuff. And like same for like
Yeah.
gender reassignment surgery. Like they're doing that like at young ages now,
Which should not be happening.
which should not be happening. And so I'm like, if we're going to wait until like the ages of like at least 18, if not until your brain is fully developed at 25, which I understand for some like might be like a devastatingly long wait.
Yeah,
But
which I would say 18 is fine, because then at the age of 18, you can go into the army,
yeah,
you can go bear
it's like
arms, you can die for our country. At
Yeah.
that point, I'm okay
you can
with
make
you
whatever
do-
decisions.
doing whatever you're going to do. But before 18, I don't think that should be happening,
Yeah,
personally.
but it's like I think it should be like the people should have more autonomy over like who they are and like their own body before they can make that kind of decision. Like that's crazy. Like regardless of anybody's belief about it, I just think that is bonkers. That's bonkers that they're letting kids be like, I want to be a boy, and then like you're gonna like start giving them testosterone before the age of 12, like, or like hormone blockers.
Yeah. But so that's hard enough to deal with. Now, so I want to move on towards the process of becoming a teacher, talking more about the actual teacher job itself. Because a lot of this has been about the kids, because it's kind of hard to talk about teaching without talking about the kids. So we've established our baseline there. The process to become a teacher in itself is kind of outrageous anyway.
Yes.
Because first you typically have to, because if you want to be a teacher, you have to go to college. In most cases, you're taking out loans to go to college. You will take your classes. Student teaching, you typically have to do that if you're getting a specific degree for teaching, which is oftentimes like 6 months to the whole year sometimes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
usually, yeah. It's a semester. It's a semester or two.
So you have a semester or two where you're doing student teaching. You're basically doing the job with no pay. You're paying the school to do this job, which is the bonkers in itself. On top of the taking out the debt, on top of then, okay, you come out, you're a teacher. You have to take an exam to get your teacher's license. That's
And
not even provided by the school. It's a separate pay you have to do for
Yep.
that exam.
An exam that costs a lot of money.
Because what was the praxis you looked at? Like $400 per exam?
So like the cheap one was like 75, but like
I'm pretty sure that wasn't it.
yeah, but like the one that the school wanted was like $300.
Yeah. So what doesn't make sense to me is if you can study and pass that praxis on your own, what's the point in the college degree?
Yeah.
Which we have an episode coming out about college degrees. I don't know when, but we'll record that probably in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have to take that exam anyway, why not just be able to study for that and then be able to do that? That's something that doesn't make sense. So you have all of this on top of the fact, most of the time when you're doing the student teaching and stuff, you can't really have another job unless you're just going to work 80-hour weeks. I mean, you do what you got to do. But if your parents can't support you, you're kind of on the struggle bus for a year,
Yeah.
like a whole year. And on top of that, so you get out, you take the praxis or whatever exam, pass that exam. Cool. You're now a licensed teacher. Find a beginner teacher job. Odds are your salary is probably right about 40 to 45 a year. Granted, I know like California, they have unions and stuff like that you can join to maybe boost that a little bit. But then your union dues might cancel that out because I don't know how all that works. I didn't do that much research. I'm sorry. But so say you're at 45 a year. Odds are, depending on which college you went to, you might have now student debt anywhere from $30K to $80K, depending on what college you went to. Now you owe basically almost an entire year's worth of salary in debt, and you're just now starting your career and trying to figure out, okay, where do I live? How do I buy a house? How do I do this? It doesn't make sense. That entire process, I feel like, is broken. So now we're lacking teachers because no one wants to go through that process anymore to become a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to say I looked that your salary half the time will cap out about 60 to 75
Yeah.
K a year. In this economy, you just about need 80 to 90 K a year.
Yeah.
And on top of the fact, you're teaching the future generation what they need to know and helping them grow and helping them develop. Why are we paying them so little
Yeah.
to do that with children? And on top of the fact, they're not just dealing with kids. They're dealing with the kid. They're dealing with the parent.
Mm-hmm.
They're dealing with the admin.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 sides of it you're having to balance.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just like teachers that I know personally, like one of the things that they have said is that the dealing with the parents is worse than dealing with the kids 9 out of 10 times. Like, because you have a kid who, you know, doesn't ever do work in class. And then you have a parent who is like, why is my kid failing? And it's like, well, your kid never turns in their work. Why are you not giving them a passing grade? Bro, like,
We don't just, you're not supposed to just hand out passing grades. You're supposed to grade what's there.
yeah. Which now, because apparently, like going back to like they're not failing kids in school anymore. I actually had a conversation with the teacher recently where I work. She's a patient there, that she was talking about how this school year they have changed their grading statistics, because I think she's a middle school or a high school teacher, like she teaches older kids. But she said they've changed like their grading scale where now like at the beginning of the year you start with the 50 and like your grade like builds up from there. Like you don't start at a 0, you start at a 50 and you can't get lower than a 50. So it's like a kid could literally never turn in a piece of paper and still get a 50 in the class.
That just don't see.
It's crazy.
Because now you're teaching the kid, okay, guess what? You don't want to do the work? That's fine.
It's a participation
then you get into the
trophy.
real world, it's like, do the work. And if they don't do the work, it's like, okay, you're fired.
It's literally, oh, you showed up to class? Okay. Well, I mean, not even that. They could skip class all year. They would still get a 50. Craziness. Craziness.
And then on top of the fact, because I've kind of seen some of these from listening to different podcasts and reading different articles. In some districts, the teachers have to pay for their sub. If they're, like, say if they're sick or there's a family emergency or something, the teacher has to take off. They take the money for the sub out of the teacher's check.
See, that's crazy.
Isn't that what sick days are for?
Like you're literally penalizing someone for being sick.
Being a human.
Yeah.
And having a life.
That's crazy.
Like, what? Why would you make them pay for their sub?
Like, is that like even in like emergency situations?
I believe so.
Like that's.
I believe if a sub is called in any at all for you, there are some districts where it's like you have to pay for that sub, which is nuts.
That is nuts.
And I've also heard stories of teachers being like, "Hey, I'm sick," and the admin will try to guilt trip them into going ahead and coming into work, even though they're sick, and could probably spread that sickness to the kids.
Yeah.
Because they're so understaffed, that's not their problem. That is an admin problem that gets paid more to deal with that.
And see, here's the thing with that is because, like, and I've seen this with like lots of jobs too. Like, if you have someone that is sick, like, especially whenever I was working at Starbucks, like that being food service, like it was so much more important that if anyone felt sick that they stay home, because like you can't spread your sickness around. That is so irresponsible. And so it's like if you have someone, like just because you're short staffed, if you have someone that's sick, please let them stay home, because then you're going to get all of those kids sick. And like, what happens if a kid is like immunocompromised and you're telling their teacher that they have to come in even while they're sick, and their teacher has to get down on their level, stay one-on-one with them. Like, even if their teacher is wearing a mask, like if like, it doesn't negate the fact that like you're still in close proximity, and there's only so much you can do to fight germs whenever you're actively sick.
And even if they even say that kid's not immune compromised, what if they're taking it home to someone that is and you don't know about?
Yeah. They live
there's
with
a whole lot that can happen there.
They live with grandma, or like mom has an autoimmune disorder,
or even say brother or sister does.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're going home to a newborn.
Yeah. That's like one of the crazy things like that's recently happened is there's been like an RSV outbreak. And like I've seen so many kids like being hospitalized because of RSV, and it was because like these adults are like carrying around the sickness, and then they're like, you know, hugging on one another, hugging on babies and kissing on babies, or they're like in close proximity with people, not telling them that they've been feeling sick, and then those people are going home to their children, giving their children RSV, like it just all kinds of things. And so I'm like, if you feel sick, like bare minimum wash your hands, okay, but like don't go out, like don't go hang out with people in close proximity if you've been feeling sick.
Yeah,
like
the job shouldn't punish them for feeling sick.
Yeah, no, and like that's crazy.
Yeah, and the creme de la creme,
Mm-hmm.
which we have some stories after this, because I have like 2 stories that Tina's going to go over, because I feel like I have dyslexia, but I don't 100% know about that, but might just be because I'm blind, not sure.
Reading is a challenge.
Reading is hard, but there was a teacher that was pregnant, and the kid punched the teacher in the stomach, and nothing was done to that child or the parents.
Like that, how old was the kid?
I want to say what I read, it was in elementary school. But it was basically like she went to bend down to tell the kid something, and he just
like just sucker punched.
Yeah. But I believe it was an elementary school kid.
See, that's why I'm like, we have to teach our kids how to like regulate their emotions and how to hold back on their impulses, because kids are very impulsive, and if you don't teach them how to have impulse control, they're going to do dumb stuff like that.
Yeah, but on top of the fact, how on earth are you supposed to just be like, oh, this is fine, and then especially even the district not doing anything about it?
Yeah.
That's what's wrong. That shouldn't happen.
It's crazy.
So, but would you like to go over one of those stories?
Yeah. Here, let's see. The first one, and I'm reading these for the first time, so these are going to be genuine reactions. So the first one, I had a student miss a question on a math homework assignment. The mother showed up at my door during homeroom the next day. No idea how she even got there with no visitor's pass. Ooh.
So,
and proceeded to tell me in front of my class that her husband had 2 doctoral degrees and she had a master's, and that I had graded her son's assignment incorrectly. Well, I hadn't, and I wrote the problem on the board and had another student from the class solve it correctly and the way they had been taught, much to the embarrassment of Mom. She left without an apology, and I made sure the office knew not to let her anywhere near my room again unless it was scheduled. Thankfully, her son was not in my homeroom, as I'm sure he would have been sick with embarrassment. I had the son work the problem for me again in class that day and did give him credit back for it. Not due to the pressure from Mom, but because when I looked at his work that morning, it became really clear that he had done it correctly. There was a fair amount of erased work, and that his super well-educated mom and dad had most likely had made him change it. See, that's what I'm saying. The parents are worse than the kids.
Just because you got a doctorate or a master's, that don't mean jack.
I want to know what the math problem was. I want to know if I could solve it.
I know for a fact I couldn't. I about failed math.
But
I was
like,
great in science. Math, nope.
but like that's another thing too, is because like they're teaching math differently than how we were taught as kids. They're teaching it differently these days. And so that's why I'm like, that's why we probably go homeschool our children, because if I have to learn a new way of doing math, I don't know if I can do that. I'm be calling their teacher, hey, can you teach me how to do this math? Because I don't know how to help them do their homework.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's just hope our kid is smart and can figure that out on their own.
Yeah, but I'm also like, what gives these people the audacity to just show up and just be like, this is a problem and you need to fix it.
Well, see, that's
and you're
just
not doing any of your own research.
that's just society in general these days. Because like I even see it now. Like I work at a chiropractor's office where like we have a schedule for patients to be on. And it's like every once in a while you'll have that one patient come in who is like, I want a massage on like this day at this time. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like that's already booked. And they're like, what do you mean? Like I can't, it's like
other people exist in the world. Yes, they do.
yeah. And I'm kind of like, I don't know. I like at that moment, like I don't really know what to say to these people, because like I'm trying to keep it calm and keep it like professional and like keep them calm and everything. But sometimes like these people are like thoroughly upset that we don't operate on their time. But it's like you as an individual cannot dictate a schedule that is a practice open to the public. Like this is a public place. Like we're not employed by you.
Other people exist in the world.
And so I'm like, I'm offering them other days and other times. They're like, no, this is the only time that would work for me. And so it's like at that point, it's like, I don't know what you want me to do, because I can't call Miss Mary Sue and ask her to move her massage just so you can have a massage. Like, and I feel like it's kind of the same sentiment here, where it's like they're not thinking about the other people involved in the story. Like, because if she had been thinking about like, oh, there are going to be other kids in this class, or, oh, like maybe I should just send an email to this teacher asking her like what's going on. Like, no, it's like
we jump to the
extreme because things aren't going the way we want. And that's a prime example of like children who are like coddled and pacified their entire lives growing up to be adults. They don't get their way. They don't know how to regulate their emotions. They don't know how to communicate effectively. So they just show up in the middle of a class and demand that you're wrong and I'm right, whenever in reality, if you would just take 2 seconds to breathe and calm down, we could have a calm conversation about it and get to a solution much faster without anybody being embarrassed or any of these kids having to witness a parent yell at a teacher over something that wasn't even the teacher's fault. Like, because I mean, like that's just demeaning to the teacher to yell at her in front of her homeroom like that.
Yeah.
Like that's just crazy. Like I don't understand why we think that that's okay to do that, but it's because like these people only think about themselves. Like they're not concerned about anybody else.
Okay.
Next story.
Yep.
All right. This one's a long one. I was working at a great school in a district that hadn't raised teacher pay in nearly a decade. My master's degree and I went to Home Depot to wait, what? I'm already thoroughly confused. Hold on. Let me start over. I was working at a great school in a district that hadn't raised teacher pay in nearly a decade. My master's degree and I went to Home Depot to unload trucks every weeknight so I could feed my family and pay my mortgage. Oh, okay. They're saying that they have a master's degree, but they're having to go to Home Depot to get extra money. I understand now.
That's not uncommon from what I've heard either.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
Like, there's a lot of teachers that have like a second job.
So I moved to a district with significantly better pay and found that the price of a higher salary was working in a horribly run school. At the request of one parent whose borderline A-grade daughter tanked the final exam, it got a D- and got a B, I was required to change the grades of nearly 1/3 of all my students to higher grades. I asked my assistant principal to help with a science demo, and he, without discussing it with me, decided that it was dangerous and had the district send a cease and desist letter to me. When I confronted him about it, he told me that if I didn't like his decision, maybe you could go work at a private school. I spent 3 years being belittled, fearing for my probationary job due to veiled threats, and being told that my expertise was a problem because other unqualified teachers who also taught my subject weren't able to teach the content I required my students to experience. I started an online master's degree in mechanical engineering, working 10 to 20 hours per week at night after my kids went to bed, and kept teaching. In the most recent school year, I started looking for jobs to no avail. My brilliant wife found a friend of a friend of a friend online whose husband worked at an aerospace company. He agreed to talk to me, and we discussed my issue for 6 months before a job opened up on his team. He is now my boss. Now I work for significantly better money and benefits as an engineer. My company is paying for the remainder of my degree. They are offering supplementary training and giving me experience in a variety of skills and fields. I get generous PTO, retirement contributions, and investment opportunities. My base entry-level salary is nearly as large as the maximum salary I could have ever made as a teacher, and the realistic cap by the end of my career is more than double that figure. I only regret that I didn't get this training in college and start this career a decade ago. Such a shame that teaching didn't pan out. All they needed to do was offer me enough to live comfortably and let me do my job, and I would have stayed forever. It's not too much to ask.
And I believe now I remember why I specifically picked that story.
Yeah, like that is crazy that like you're working in a good school in a good environment, but you're not getting enough pay. But the second that you get a higher pay, like you realize that the reason why they're probably paying more is because it's run terribly, and that's the only way they're keeping people is to pay them a little extra money.
Yeah, because and thing is, you can have bad admin, nothing's going to be done about them. Like admin are pretty much there to stay, and they feel like they're invincible.
Yeah, well,
Unless
but see, that's
something really, 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 really bad happens.
But see, that's the thing though, is because like if the school board likes you, then like nothing's gonna happen. You know, like
yeah, because and this isn't the first story I've heard of a lot of teachers finding a different career. They leave teaching and get a much better salary with a lot less headache of work.
yeah,
And here's another thing you got to think of too. So you're salaried. There's no overtime.
yeah,
None. On top of the fact you're salaried, and you also have those 2 months that you're not working during the summer, at least here in America. On top of that, you typically have those salaries, but then they're going to want you to, like, say if you're in middle school and high school, they're going to want you to help with football games, concessions, concerts,
yep,
dances. You're going to be working outside of your contracted hours with no pay, basically.
yep.
Because your contracted hours are typically those teaching hours.
And then if you try to refuse, you get punished for it.
Yep, because it's not volunteer, you're voluntold.
Yep.
As we call it at my job.
Yeah,
But, so, which is kind of the reason I'm here, because today my work wanted to be like, hey, we're taking volunteers. I was like, nope,
yeah.
I'm good. Thank you. I volunteered to see.
But no, like that's the thing that's crazy to me is that these teachers are literally raising the future of our nation. Like lots of times these teachers spend more time with these kids than the parents do.
They do. 'Cause
And
you got to think, these teachers are with your kids typically 6 to 8 hours a day.
yeah, I mean like 8 to what? Like
8 to 3 or 2. 8 to 2.
yeah.
So they got that, and then typically they have to go to like some kind of after school program or something half the time.
Mhm.
Then the parent will only see their kid from 5 to 8:30 till they go to bed.
Yep.
So you got a person that's helping these kids raising these kids basically, and you don't want to pay them enough to live, and it don't help a house is $300,000.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much to ask for a livable wage.
Yeah. Well, because I'm like, if we're going to make these teachers like do all these hours, do all this time, I mean, like pay them for the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Please. Like that's the reason why teachers are salaried, because if teachers were paid hourly.
Oh, I can't remember where it was at. There was a TikTok of a guy that actually broke down if a teacher got paid hourly, they would be making well over like $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
If they was paid hourly.
Yeah.
Unless the only way they would be making $40,000 to $50,000 a year hourly is if their hourly was like $5 an hour. It's ridiculous.
That's bonkers.
And not to mention the fact most of the time teachers take tests home because there's required trainings that the teachers have to attend and required meetings. Of half the time there is no reason for the teachers to be there other than for the faculty and admin to be like, we provided a training on safety and emotional regulation, which taught them nothing.
Yeah. Which I do have to say, I had another conversation with another teacher who, like this summer, whenever school was getting back in session, like, you know, like early August, they were talking about how, because they had to cancel a lot of their appointments and rescheduled them because they kept getting called into meetings at the school. School hadn't even started yet. And they were having to get called in for these teacher work days. But these teacher work days were literally just them sitting there like for lectures on kids. And she was like, I've been teaching for 20 years and I have never gone through as much training as I have just this summer.
And I can about guarantee you it was unpaid too.
I mean, I probably, because I'm pretty sure, like,
because I don't think your contracted hours technically start again until
yeah,
school
well,
starts.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, because like in the state of North Carolina, you know, you can do that thing where you get paid over the summer, like they
yeah, but typically
divide your
then you're
paychecks up.
lowering your other checks.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I'm saying. Like they're dividing your paychecks up so you get paid over the summer, so it's like all equal. So like I'm pretty sure she was doing that, but I'm like, that's the thing with salary is like it doesn't matter how much you work, you still get paid the same amount. So they can keep calling you in for this stuff, these mandatory work days, and threaten your job if you don't come. You know?
Which is definitely wrong in my head.
Yeah.
Like, all we want is to be able
But
to
like,
afford a house.
But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're like a first year, second year, third year teacher, like you're, you know, pretty new at teaching, I would understand like having these workshops. But even then, like, don't make them mandatory. Just be like, hey, we're having these workshops. If you want to learn more, like, come hang out with us.
Yeah,
we'll have
odds are no one would show up
food.
to those workshops.
Well, but if they're like nice and they're like, we'll have food, we'll buy your lunch, like whatever. I mean, like I would show up for free food.
Yeah, that's fair.
But to like make it mandatory, and it's like teachers who have been teaching 15, 20, 25 years, like teachers who have experience, and they're having to sit through these like base level workshops where they're like, it's stuff that like nobody had to tell me. Like I just knew, like it's common sense stuff.
It's like, I could understand the workshop is like, hey, we're updating this rule.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But half of them are not that. Actually, probably 90% of them are not that.
Yeah. Long story short, shout out to all the teachers out there, because y'all deserve so much more
than you are getting.
than what you're getting.
So you still want to be a teacher?
I don't know. I think if I were to teach, it would be in more of a private lesson capacity, teaching music. I don't think.
You almost want to be like a tutor more than anything.
I wouldn't be able to deal with that. And I mean, like, if I have like good admin that's backing me up, like I have a good support system, I feel like I would be fine. But to get put in a school where...
And 9 times out of 10, your first year, you're not going to have good admin.
Yeah.
Because the schools that have good admin, the teachers don't leave until they retire.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are harder to get into.
Yeah.
And the ones that are understaffed for a reason.
Yep.
That's all I got. Anything else you'd like to leave us with?
All I gotta say is be kind, love one another, and don't kill your spouse.
All right. I'll catch you guys in the next episode as long as I'm alive.